The Enlightenment is based on a deep belief in human reason, or ratio. Ratio in Latin means reason. This is a belief which already the French philosopher René Descartes formulated in the 17th century when he wrote, Je pense donc je suis, which means I think, therefore I am. In Latin it's cogito ergo sum. And then his next step was to say, Je pense donc Dieu est, which means I think, therefore there is God, which is a proof of the existence of God. So this one sentence, I think, thus I am, contains a thought which had an enormous impact on the Western world and which shaped it to a great extent. The ideas and thoughts of the Enlightenment are basically initially based on the theories of Descartes, and his theory of rationalism has laid the basis for further development. He calls this the reason that was given to every person and distinguishes it from animals. He allows each individual to the ability to use his own mind and to rule over nature. And so in this way, man could be able to decide on their own living conditions and consequently to improve or optimize them. So Descartes is the father of enlightenment. Another father of enlightenment is the German philosopher Leibniz, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. He's one of the first German philosophers, known for his philosophy of mind, and a great mathematician and logician. He's the one who invented the differential and integral calculus, separate from Isaac Newton. So he's also considered as the father of enlightenment. So looking at the Cartesian philosophy, Cartesian coming from Descartes, so we call it Cartesian philosophy, which states that man could create an earthly paradise which, if he were only to use his own reason, if he behaved as a rational being. So, interestingly, did you know that the Constitution of the US is a direct product of the philosophy of the Enlightenment? And the same thing for the Declaration of Independence of 1776, July 4th. So it all comes from there. And in fact, the US Constitution and the Declaration of Independence contains all the political ideas of the Scottish philosopher John Locke. This is a picture of John Locke. He wrote the second treatise on government in the late 17th century. And believe it or not, the Declaration of Independence took some entire passages from John Locke's book, the Treatise on Government. Kind of like plagiarism. So it contains all the political ideas of John Locke. If you ever read the Declaration of Independence and compare it to the treatise of the government by John Locke, you will see how similar it is. So the Enlightenment started in philosophy and spread soon to politics, history, and the arts, and of course also literature. It reached Germany from France and also from Great Britain, a country which had a very substantial influence on German thought and German literature in the 18th century. Great Britain had a huge influence on German literature. What is also very, very important to mention is another philosopher by the name Immanuel Kant, the German philosopher. There's a picture of him when he was young and a picture of him when he was older. I believe all of you know the philosopher Kant. So for the period of the Enlightenment in Germany, the philosopher Immanuel Kant was a central figure. According to his definition, Aufklärung is Aufklärung is the output of man from his self-maturity. So, here it goes. Enlightenment is man's release from his self-incurred tutelage. Tutelage is man's inability to make use of his understanding without direction from another. Sapere aude in Latin, that means have courage to use your own reason. So in the Enlightenment people in the 18th century want to free the people from both the spiritual and political tutelage. Kant is also known for designing transcendental philosophy, which is a new understanding of man, that we bring innate forms or concepts to the raw experience of the world, which would otherwise be unknowable. So the individuals live only for themselves and not for others or higher powers. And this idea from Kant provides a new pulse, particularly to the middle class, who were suppressed and directed by the prince, as you see it in Emilia Galotti. And Kant's appeal to the human's capacity for self-reflection influenced the development of the members of the middle class very strongly. I really like this quote. Unfortunately, it's written in German, but I can translate it for you. So this is a quote from Kant. Nur Völker, die für ihre Freiheit kämpfen, werden mit der Freiheit belohnt. That means only people who fight for their freedom will be awarded with freedom. And then below, die unbeschriebenen Gesetze und Zwänge der Natur werden letztlich dasjenige Volk belohnen, das sich allen Widerwärtigkeiten zum Trotz erhebt, gegen Ungerechtigkeiten, Lügen und Chaos anzukämpfen. This means the unwritten laws and forces of nature will, in the end, reward the people who, despite all the unpleasantness, rise above in order to fight against injustice, lies, and chaos. And now we're going to Lessing, he is a great writer, the greatest writer during the Age of Enlightenment. And this is what he said. I have this also just in German. Freiheit statt Absolutismus. Freedom instead of absolutism. Gleichheit statt Ständeordnung. Equality instead of class difference. Erfahrung, wissenschaftliche Erkenntnis statt Vorurteil und Aberglauben. Experience, scientific knowledge instead of prejudice and superstitions. Toleranz statt Dogmatismus. Tolerance instead of dogmatism. So Lessing's drama, Emilia Galotti, and his very first one, Miss Sarah Sampson, occupies a very special position during the Enlightenment. This type of literary work can thereby be even considered as the most important in the 18th century. And this is why we read Emilia Galotti in this class, because it's one of the most significant representative of a drama, which is a form of literary work that was prevalent during that time. And you have two types of dramas. One is tragedy and two is comedy. And the one that you are reading is a tragedy. So the authors of the Enlightenment were filled with the hope of being able to educate and change the viewers and the readers, and their thoughts and ideas of the era are reflected in their characters, the characters of the story. And a very good example of this is Lessing's play Nathan the Wise, which takes up the idea of humanity and tolerance, especially against the religions.